Hey there everyone, it's Arctic. A lot of Stardew Valley players agree that fishing is difficult. Of course, a greater fishing skill, better tools, and bobbers can make fishing easier, but there are some fish which are just too quick or elusive to be caught without some real dedication. I decided to challenge myself and was able to catch every fish in Stardew Valley. Now, I know catching all fish is part of achieving perfection, but this is a little different. Perfection requires players to catch almost every fish. It doesn't include the second generation of legendary fish attainable only through Mr. Key's extended family quest. However, when I say every fish, I really mean every fish. This challenge didn't end with just the OG legendaries. This challenge required me to access multiple regions in the game, so I couldn't just go fishing around the valley every day to complete it. I had to farm for community center items and goods to sell, reach the bottom of the mines and get into the Skull Cavern, and unlock Ginger Island. Because of that, this video took ages to make, including over 57 hours of in-game playtime, and loads of researching and planning, as well as a lengthy editing process. I would really appreciate it if you consider clicking like and subscribing to the channel if you would like to see more content like this. Anyway, I hope you all enjoy! The first thing I had to do was make a checklist of all fish in the game, as well as crab pot fish and other non-trash catchables, as I included those as part of the challenge. For every fish, I noted the locations, time of day, and seasons in which they could be caught, as well as any extra details, such as weather requirements. Then, I was able to begin. I started out on a new save. First, I cleared space to plant my first parsnips. The player doesn't receive their first fishing rod until day 2, so I spent the first day gathering resources and starting to level up my skills. With so little energy, I was limited to cutting weeds and grass for most of the first day, since the site doesn't use energy, and foraged on the farm and in the Cindersap forest. Forageables made for a helpful basic food source and a head start on the community center. Because I have the attention span of a squirrel on illegal substances, I forgot to hide the follower goal from my Twitch streams on OBS before recording parts of this video, so don't mind it chilling over in the corner. With the last of my energy, I planted the mixed seeds I got from cutting weeds, collected forageables and fiber until nightfall, then went to bed. The next day, I checked my mail for Willie's letter, ignored all quests not required to advance the game, which I still hadn't finished introductions by the end, watered my crops, then went to meet Willie down at the docks. I got my bamboo pole and threw my first cast. I caught my first fish with the absurdly small initial fishing bar, a sardine, followed by a lovely, valuable piece of actual garbage. Next I caught the halibut, then hooked some seaweed. I sold my extra fish to Willie for money and bought another bamboo rod because I'm an idiot and thought I had a training rod. Why did I just waste 500 gold? Anyway, I got an anchovy from some bubbles. Next, I went back to the farm to clear out some inventory space, then headed back to the beach for some foraging and more fishing. I caught a herring and a few extra fish, then eventually dipped for the day. I woke up to rain the next day. The crops didn't need to be watered, so I went straight to fishing. I checked the trash cans on the way through town, as one does, and scored some bread, then started on the spring's river fish. My first catch was a smallmouth bass. Then I snatched some green algae. Some soggy paper and a few failed attempts later, I decided bigger fish were a bit too much at the moment, so I picked up some forageables, then headed up to the mountain lake. I caught a chub and some treasure, then reeled in a largemouth bass. I returned to the farm with a full inventory and a couple frozen geodes, then gathered wood for another chest to drop everything in. I then went back to the mountain lake, got a carp and fisherman achievement. After catching more doubles, I went to the river, snagged shad, then went back to the farm. I started a fish chest specifically to hold one of each fish, so I'd have one of each in my possession at the end of the challenge, and wouldn't accidentally sell them. A late night trip back to the river scored me a bream, then I called it a day, and leveled up fishing overnight. The next day I caught flounder and some decent extra loot. I continued to fish until I had enough gold for a fiberglass rod, then moved to the mountain lake where I spent my remaining energy fishing for extra gold and treasure. I copped a bullhead while I was at it. I slashed weeds with almost no energy the rest of the night and had a haul of fiber and mixed seeds. then leveled up the fishing skill again. Day 5 meant kitty time, and the first parsnip harvest. I reluctantly spent my meager savings on more seeds, planted and watered them, then fished until I pulled a wood skip from the farm pond, which was my reason for choosing the forest farm. That way I didn't have to worry about getting into the secret woods and fending off slime while trying to catch one. The spring fish I had yet to capture were few in number, and the way had cleared, so I took my first dip into the mines. With a good effort, I made it to floor 13 before bailing for the night. I spent the next few days expanding the farm, unlocking more of the map, and descending further into the mines. On day 10, I finally caught the catfish. I continued fishing for more gold, worked the farm, and visited the wizard to unlock the community center. Without much else to do, I spent most of the remainder of spring foraging, fishing for profit, gathering resources, working on bundles, and grinding in the mines. This became the norm for each season, since I usually caught most of the fish I needed within the first few days. I caught an eel on the next rainy day, then Mother sent me cookies. I didn't plan to waste time on festivals, but I needed my straw hat. Halfway through spring, I started on the museum, since I would need to complete it to access Ginger Island later in the game. I got my first crab pot catch near the end of the season, an oyster, then a cockle the next day. And, like an idiot, overexerted myself, not for the first or the last time. I decided to get into the secret woods early using the little chair trick for foraging, so I was able to pick up a couple fiddlehead ferns. I topped off the season with a sunfish, the last spring fish besides a legend, as my fishing level wasn't high enough to catch it yet. I woke up on summer day 1, cleared out the field for new crops, finished a community center bundle, then once again spent my life savings on seeds at Pierre's. It was very late by the time the farm was planted and watered. I had no energy left, but still took a trip to fill my forgotten crab pot and do a little evening foraging. On day 2, I jumped into summer ocean fishing. The first catch of the day was a red mullet, then later I wrangled a tuna just before overexhaustion set in. But I just ate a piece of seaweed and got right back into fishing like the masochist I am and caught a super cucumber. I took advantage of the next rainy day to go deeper in the mines with a full energy bar, prioritizing slaying monsters over breaking rocks to conserve energy and limit food consumption, then was able to finish the day at floor 60. I later completed the summer forage bundle and snagged a tilapia at the beach. The Cindersap Forest pond surrendered a pike following a valiant battle. On day 6, I barely managed to pull a pufferfish from the ocean and caught a periwinkle in my river crab pot and a clam in the ocean one. Next, I went up to the mountain lake for rainbow trout, then switched it up and slid into the mines. With a little patience, I was able to catch a white algae and ghostfish. It took a bit of grinding, but I managed to get a stonefish on the 8th of summer. The next river pot catch was a snail and a mussel from the ocean. Once I remembered the iridium rod exists and bought it on the 9th of summer, fishing got easier. Not easy, but easier. I caught my first legendary fish of the game on summer 10th, the crimson fish. I completed the community center crab pot bundle and got more pots, which I set up for the remaining catches. The final river crab pot catch was a crayfish. Then I moved all of my pots to the ocean, where I caught a shrimp. A rainy summer day meant it was red snapper time. After days of trying to catch the elusive Dorado, to the point that I actually thought it was a mod and not part of the original game, I finally found it. And oh my god, that took forever! I finished crab pots with a lobster and a crab on the 14th of summer, then moved over to the mountain lake to reel in a sturgeon. Next, I brought home an octopus with a stroke of luck, and after some mining, cleared the community center boiler room. A few days later, I reached floor 100 and got the mine star drop, then hauled down to the bottom floor. Fall began with another quarterly visit to Pierre for seeds and another day spent planting the farm. The second day of fall brought the first catch of the season, a tiger trout, then a salmon shortly after. I dropped by the ocean for a sea cucumber and snagged an albacore in the evening. I reeled in my second legendary of the game on the 3rd of fall, the angler, and snatched a walleye after a long day of fishing in the rain. I cracked open a cold one with a midnight carp on Friday night and later amassed enough money to finish the vault and get the bus running. I made my first trip to the desert on fall 9th. The sandfish surrendered early on, but the hard battle for the scorpion carp wasn't won until the next day. Fall 10th ended with the completion of the fish tank in the community center. On fall 11th, I finally caught an ice pip, then dropped down to floor 100 for a lava eel. Toward the end of the season, I slayed the fishing game at the Valley Fair and got another star drop. When winter rolled around, I switched from farming to ranching and focused on increasing profits, hung around the mountain lake until I caught a lingcod, then grabbed a few forageables during a short stroll to finish the community center craft room. I rounded out day 1 with a squid. On the second day of winter, I barely reeled in the pain in my glacier fish, followed by a victory perch. At this point, there wasn't much fishing to do. Besides some farming, ranching, and production for gold, I spent most of my time grinding in the mines and Skull Cavern for geodes and artifacts to complete the museum. I also kept an eye out for what goods I still needed for the community center. On the 13th of winter, I finally completed the community center pantry. When the night market rolled around, I caught the blobfish, midnight squid, and spookfish, and a nice deep dive in the submarine. I caught a few extra fishies for gold before returning to the surface. With the pantry cleared, the greenhouse was rebuilt, and it became the primary farming area for the rest of winter, though outdoor farming wasn't completely off the table. Spring rolled around again soon after. Day 1 was spent setting up the outdoor farm again for more gold to fund my quest, as well as a little bit of day 2. The 7th of spring was a rainy day, and when I took a trip to the mountain lake, I was surprised with the legend on my first cast. I've been checking the traveling cart for community center items every Friday and Sunday throughout the game, but it never had the elusive red cabbage, not until it was finally offered in the middle of spring year 2. On spring 20th, the community center was completed. I may or may not have cried a little bit when the Junimos left. I love those little guys. With the community center done, I could repair Willie's boat and make my first trip to Ginger Island. After a little exploring, I scored a lionfish from the ocean. On the last day of spring, I managed to gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss, mansplain, manipulate, and manwhore my way through the volcano dungeon. I summoned the Galaxy Sword on the 2nd of summer, which made the Skull Cavern a little bit easier, and on the 3rd, caught a blue discus. Once the Pirates' Cove was unlocked, I partied with the pirates and reeled in a stingray with a little patience. Through fishing, tilling, combat, and foraging, I tackled the time-consuming task of collecting 100 golden walnuts and unlocked Key's Walnut Room. The quest I needed wasn't available, so I returned to Stardew Valley. The museum was something like a side project throughout the playthrough, as I slowly amassed goods. Treasure catches from fishing were a huge help in gathering artifacts and jewels in the early game, but later I had to rely on geodes, tilling, and artifact troves. It took days of tilling floor after floor in the lower mines to find the last dwarf scroll, leaving only the golden mask. I spent hours grinding for Omni Geodes to trade for artifact troves and tilling artifact spots in the desert, then finally found the mask and an artifact trove to finish the museum. I unlocked the sewer and returned later with some gear. After waiting, I was able to hook and haul in the long-awaited mutant carp. Next, I moved up to the mutant bug lair and fished a slime easy, then dragged a void salmon from the depths of the witch's swamp after grabbing the dark talisman. With only the 2nd generation legendary fish remaining, I slept the days away until the Key's extended family quest showed up in the Walnut Room, then warped back to the valley and got to work. Armed with an iridium rod and array of bobbers, I wrestled the ultimate pain in the glacierfish Jr., then the radioactive carp on day 1 of the quest. On day 2, I pulled Miss Angler and the Legend the 2nd. On day 3, after passing out on the docks without success 2 nights in a row, the challenge was finally completed with the Son of Crimson Fish. This challenge was, well, a challenge. Initially, I thought it would only take about a week if I played for a couple hours a night, but then I remembered not all fish can be caught in the oceans and rivers of Stardew Valley. In order to catch everything, I had to reach the bottom of the mines, grind in the Skull Cavern, unlock everything on Ginger Island, finish the museum to access the sewers, and amass tons of gold to fund my quest, all while also trying to catch and keep one of each fish. The challenge tested not just my fishing skills, but my knowledge and skills pertaining to all aspects of Stardew Valley. Not only that, it took so long to do this challenge that I started to record only the gameplay I felt I needed for the video, but still had hours of footage to review. I'd managed to capture all my catches, though there were a few fish I had to catch more than once because I forgot to start recording when I threw my first cast. And there was some miscellaneous gameplay I hadn't thought to capture, but wish I had so I could have included it in the video. Overall, I enjoyed the challenge, even if parts of it had me laying face down on the floor with despair. There were times I thought about giving up, but I'm glad I made it through to the end. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you next time. Bye!